it's Cam with Modern Retro Renaissance. Tonight I wanted to discuss something that I find very interesting. That is remakes of games. I know that remasters and remakes seem to really saturate the gaming landscape these days, but some are worth pursuing and some are just a cash grab. There is one game developer in particular that whenever I see their name attached to a remaster or a remake, I get very excited. That developer is Bluepoint Games. Since 2021, Bluepoint Games has actually been part of PlayStation. It was founded by two gentlemen who actually worked on Metroid Prime. Since coming under the PlayStation banner, they have done remakes such as the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, Shadow Colossus and Eco, the Demon's Souls PS5 remake that launched with the system. They worked on Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 for the HD collection that was released. They actually built a proprietary engine under which PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, whether you were a fan of that game or not, ran, which is actually very impressive because it was a very effective engine. With that in mind, my mind went to what are some retro or close to retro games that I would like to see Bluepoint get to do a remake of. Now, I understand that Bluepoint is a PlayStation owned company at this point, so maybe some of these games you wouldn't necessarily get to see under the PlayStation 5 banner, but this is for fun and this is a what if. My unofficial criteria for picking these games were I kind of wanted it to not be an all-time classic for whichever system, not really a top 10 game for the system, and or the graphics and technology have not aged well from the generation it was made, and or it's considered a cult classic, and or it was not understood or appreciated in its time, and it is not easy to play / afford in the modern gaming landscape. With that being said, let's jump into number 5 on my list. Blood Omen Legacy of Cain, and to be honest, the whole Blood Omen Soul Reaver series is one of my favorite series that never truly has received the attention, the appreciation that it deserved. For purposes of this video, we're going to focus on Blood Omen Legacy of Cain, which was the first game in the series. Blood Omen Legacy of Cain was developed by Silicon Knights and produced by Crystal Dynamics. The main character, Cain, is your quintessential anti-hero. He kind of was one of the first big anti-heroes in gaming. What I always loved about Legacy of Cain was the gothic medieval setting that it was placed in. The world that they created for the characters to interact was so amazing. At the time, it was, dare I say, groundbreaking. So many games today owe what they are to Legacy of Cain. It had refined story, and the voice acting was probably 10 or 15 years ahead of its time. Before Legacy of Cain, voice acting was laughable. After Legacy of Cain, they had set a new bar, which studios realized that they were going to have to try to reach. Legacy of Cain graphically has not aged well, and to get a complete remake would be a delight for me. To be honest, with a remake, I would like to see it play maybe a little bit more like its sequel, Soul Reaver, with more of a behind-the-shoulder 3D movable camera. All in all, this is just a series that deserves more attention. It's a series that deserves for a whole new generation to be able to discover it. it deserves to have the spit and polish put into it to make it as beautiful as it always was for a modern audience. Number 4 is Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. This is another game that was developed by Silicon Knights. This time it was produced by Nintendo. This was Nintendo's attempt to become more mature. This is actually the second game on my list after Legacy of Cain that was directed by Dennis Dyack, who was with Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics back in the day. Obviously, he was a wonderful video game story writer and director. Eternal Darkness was pulled straight out of H.P. Lovecraft's lore and put into video game form. The big gameplay hook with Eternal Darkness, as most of you probably know, is the sanity effects that they used in the game. The game literally and truly messed with your head. It would make you think that the system had turned off. It would make you think that your memory card had been erased. You would go through 30 seconds of gameplay and all of a sudden your head would explode and you start back at the entrance to the room. For its time, and to be honest, to a certain extent, even to today, nothing has ever really done it like Eternal Darkness did. Why this game needs a remake and needs a studio like Bluepoint Games to remake it is the gameplay does feel clunky by today's standards, and it could use a graphical overhaul. Like a lot of games for the GameCube, the Nintendo 64 generations, the 3D polygons have not aged as well. I would love to see someone get a hold of this game, put a whole nother level of polish on it, update the gameplay, make it play a little bit smoother, just all around have a better feel to it. I think with those things done, a new generation would be able to experience this game. And I think that with games like Resident Evil 4 Remake doing so well, I think that it would finally get the popularity, get the attention that it did not receive on the GameCube back in the day when it was very much misunderstood. Number 3 on my list is a Dreamcast game called Canon Spike. Canon Spike was developed by Capcom and produced by Saga for its system. It was a multi-directional shooter, what today would be referred to as a twin-stick shooter, but as you know, the Dreamcast only had one analog, so couldn't really be at the time defined as a twin-stick. It plays a lot like Robotron, and what's really fun about this game is being a Capcom property, you get to play as characters such as BB Hood from the Darkstalker games, Arthur from Ghouls and Ghosts, Cammy from Street Fighter fame, and as you can see on the screen, the Blue Bomber himself, Mega Man. This game would be perfect for a remake. Make it 4-player, multiplayer, something that is very popular with today's games, people being able to play online, something that Sega Dreamcast was just really in the infancy of people appreciating. It would be so much fun to be able to just play this game with friends sitting on a couch or online, whichever way that you could. It is an underappreciated and misunderstood at times game. They could really do a lot with tweaking just the gameplay. Really, once again, dual analog sticks on this game makes so much of a difference if they could implement that, and they could easily do so. And while we're at it, if we're going to have a roster of Capcom characters, let's expand that roster. Let's put even more characters from their, going on 40 years of experience in the industry, creating some of the greatest characters ever. As much as I hate paid DLC, I would probably pay for some extra characters on a game like this. Number 4 on my list is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, made by Bethesda and produced by Bethesda long before they were ever bought out by Microsoft. This was truly a 100% open world game. No matter what you saw in the distance, if you had the abilities, you could reach that point. You could go anywhere, you could do anything. This game was wonderfully and beautifully a broken game. There was so much that you could do that would end the game. There are characters that if you killed them, you could no longer move forward in the story of the game. In my opinion, this was the peak of the Elder Scrolls series. Skyrim can't hold a candle to it. I know that is heresy to a lot of people, but you had to be there at the time when Morrowind came out, especially on the Xbox. No one thought that a game like this could be done on a console. This was a PC game, and this was the first RPG like this that was successfully translated over to a console. The thing is, with the brokenness of it, it has not aged well. With a remake, I would not say that they undo the brokenness, but there are many quality of life improvements that could be made. It is a clunky game to go back and try to play now. They could iron out some of the systems, the inventory management, etc. Just the things that come with these massively huge open world games. To be honest, they have the technology to do it very easily. You could remake this game using the Skyrim engine, maybe an updated version of the Skyrim engine, because let's face it, that engine is getting old. This is a game that a lot of people never experienced. Really, the Elder Scrolls took off with Oblivion, which was the spiritual sequel to this game. And then, as you know, Skyrim blew up and you can play it on anything and everything these days. This is the type of game that is just screaming for a remake so that a whole new generation can play the game, can appreciate the beauty of the game. This last game should come as no surprise to anyone. It is Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn. This game was developed by the incomparable Team Andromeda, who made the Panzer Dragoon games, and obviously published by Saga. Many make the argument that this is the best RPG of its generation. And to be honest, I cannot disagree with people that make those claims. It was such a departure from what the